program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the Eau Claire Area School Board. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Eau Claire School Board. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for being here tonight, and to all those who are listening in on the live stream. It's good to have you. Are we in compliance with the open meetings law notification?
Yes, we are.
Okay, and if we could have a roll call for verification of quorum.
Commissioner Bika? Here. Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle?
Here.
Commissioner Harder? Commissioner Klinkhammer?
Here.
Commissioner Luganville?
Here.
Commissioner Torres?
Here.
Commissioner Vu?
Here.
All right, first on our agenda is the public forum, and I don't believe anyone is signed up this evening. And that takes us now to our superintendent's report. Dr. Hardebeck.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I would like to briefly review the calendar for the school board events by saying that our next regularly scheduled meetings are on September 10 and 24th, and our calendar will be updated next week as our executive assistant, Patty Iverson, returns from Italy. At your desk, you will see 4 annual written reports. One is on PBIS, one is on school nursing services, a third one is on seclusion and physical restraint, and the fourth one is on school-based mental health. At a later board meeting, Dr. Zhang will give you a summary of these reports, but we would like for you to take some time to look them over and to see if you have questions, and if you could forward those questions to me prior to her summary, that would be helpful. We are at a point where all of our staff will return on August 27th. And after 3 years of Memorial High School hosting the entire district for a variety of wellness activities, feedback from our annual kickoff day survey told us that staff is ready for a change. As a result, wellness activities will take place in each individual building in the afternoon of the 27th at the school, and school-based professional development will take place in the morning at each school. So the schools will have a little bit of a welcome back day for each of their staffs. The idea is to give new and veteran building staff time to meet each other and connect with each other at their schools. Our original plan was to have a little bit of an interruption at midday and have our annual get-together and kick-off as a whole staff. However, we have run into a few logistical issues. As you know, Memorial is under construction with referendum projects, and as a result, parking is somewhat limited. And we found out last week that our overflow parking at the church across the street at Wesleyan Church is not available. And it's not available because they are paving their parking lot. We also learned that there is road work occurring on Key Street. So by the time we would get everyone seated at Memorial, there would be little time for the wellness activities. And that is important to us. Those wellness activities are important to us because we believe it's an important activity for staff to begin the school year with a little bit of a focus on their own well-being. We know that they work hard throughout the year to take care of our students, and we want to emphasize the importance of their tending to their own well-being by marking this first day with wellness activities. So therefore, we are going to forego the all-staff welcome at Memorial this year. However, we intend to pick it up again next year after the referendum construction is completed. And we are all excited for the new school year. We had a great NEO this morning at North, welcoming 54 new staff members to ECASD. You know, it's just really fun to see the number of people there, both veteran staff and new staff who are products of the Eau Claire Area School District. I'd also like to thank Mark Goins and ECAE for their tradition of greeting the new staff members and also providing lunch for the new staff and for their principals and administrators. It's a really nice gesture on the part of the union. It kind of brings us all together at midday. It gives us a little bit of an opportunity to socialize and have some fellowship. And we really appreciate the gesture as a symbol of the way that we work together. And I also want to thank Mark Goins for reinforcing the message that President Luganbill and I gave to the new teachers today in terms of their ability to make a difference in the lives of children, and also the way that they will serve our students, and the fact that we're just so very glad that they chose to come to Eau Claire. And then finally, tonight we have a little bit of a surprise for you. CVTC has created a video, and in that video they talk about our post-secondary opportunities with CVTC. Eau Claire's partnership with the Chippewa Valley Technical College has created 18 different courses and 9 academic academies for students. And we are just a part of the work that they do in the region in terms of promoting post-secondary success for high school students. These opportunities allow students to explore their academic and career plans and acquire college credit while they're in high school. Students that complete one of the 9 academic academies can earn a college-level certificate before they graduate from high school. In the 2017-2018 school year, 553 students participated in at least one CVTC class, and they earned 1,400 post-secondary credits while they were in high school. So CVT is the most popular after graduation post-secondary experience with our graduates, with just over 210 new ECASD graduates choosing to start their college career at CVTC. So we are very pleased to present this video for you.
High school academies are a series of courses that students take in a career pathway. They may take one or more college courses that are taught by our faculty, and I work with school districts to set up those courses so that they're taught either at their high school, at a CVTC host site, or on our campus at CVTC. High school academies give students a chance to be able to take a course in a career pathway that they are exploring, to be able to identify if this is something that they really want to do as they move into their career pathway, and also to be able to save money and save time in college. So they're able to take up to a year of courses through CVTC, earn college credit and high school credit, and be able to then move into a 2-year or 4-year program and save a year of time.
Well, one of our goals with all of our high school students is that they have some successful post-secondary experience before they leave us. And I think they leave us having the confidence that they can move on to the next step once they've had that experience at CVTC.
We have a welding academy, a machine tool academy. We're going to be starting with an IT online academy, healthcare academy, and the college transfer academy. And so all those opportunities are helping our students get college and career ready. And with the State of Wisconsin initiative of having all of our high school students college and career ready before they graduate, what better opportunity for area districts to get our students one step closer to that goal.
The high school academy really helped with the fact that I didn't know if I wanted to be a machinist, if I wanted to be a welder, but it gave me the chance to take it and do it with no risk to myself except gaining more experience in different varieties. I am a hands-on learner, So it helps a lot with physically actually being able to do something, and then the correlation with what happens, what works, what didn't work is truly there.
Some of the students that are in the high school academy are working in industry as a part of certain programs that the companies will have. So they come to school, they go to their high school in the morning, come to CVTC in the afternoon, then from CVTC they go right into the workforce.
I'm taking Web 1. I'll learn how to code websites in HTML and CSS. It was worth my time, and I like this topic, so I might take more of it. I plan to go to college, and I think this will prepare me pretty well. It's fun, and it's interactive, and you're earning college credits and saving money.
All right, perfect. We're gonna put this on.
We've been partnering with CVTC and the Healthcare Academy for around 3 years at this point. It's a really good opportunity because the CNA is really the foundation and kind of the pipeline for people that want to get into other areas of healthcare. So whether that's going on to be 2 or 4 year nurses, or whether that's getting into something very specific like radiography, radiology, sonography, any of those acute healthcare fields, CNA is where you have to start, and really gives them those foundational skills that they can build off of.
Well, I was interested in business and learning more about business, and maybe even getting a 4-year business degree someday. So I thought if I could get the free education while I'm in high school, and it's a subject that interests me, there's no reason not to do it.
The business management program that we are offering through the River Falls High School is a really exciting opportunity for students. It's the first one in the state that allows students to be able to enter as a freshman with the idea of moving into a business management degree. By the time they are seniors, they will graduate with their high school diploma. In addition, they'll have their associate's degree in business management that they can take with them anywhere that they go.
They can leave the high school and not have to start at the very beginning. They've already got their general education courses taken out of the way, a lot of their business courses. They can start right into a business program at the college level at the 2nd or 3rd year.
Well, I'd say for sure do it because it's a very interesting topic, and if you have a job out in the real world, you can easily apply what you're learning from this class and this academy into the job. And it's also just free education that you can get done while you're in high school versus after, where you're going to have to pay for it.
I think that this is an outstanding opportunity for students that are truly motivated to do something like this. This is great information for parents to get as a way to make college a little more affordable as well. I would encourage all high schools to take a look at this.
What's the risk to you? You're not wasting a bunch of money on something you're uncertain about, and odds are you're going to thoroughly love it.
I'd say try it. You don't know what you can do until you're in it, and there's a lot of support, a lot of resources, and we want you to take advantage of every opportunity you have, and we'll help you.
It can be life-changing for these students. Get a jump start on college, get right into the workforce, start making some money. It's a dream come true.
If you're interested in applying for one of our academies, you can apply right online or talk to your high school counselor. If you have questions about getting an academy started, you can reach out to me. I work with the school district to get their approval, and we register the students and send them their schedule.
So this is a very exciting program for us, and it's exciting on a number of levels, not only for our partnership with CVTC, but our partnership with other school districts and the academies that CVTC runs that so many of our students can participate in. And we're really fortunate tonight that Crystal Tavares is here, and she is the kind of the shepherdess of this program. And Crystal, I'd ask you to stand up, please. And she really is the person who coordinates all of this and works with all of the different school districts and the high school students and makes sure that they get what they need. Thank you. And of course, she had a major role in putting this video together, so thank you for that as well, because it does a good job to publicize the opportunities at CVTC. So that's my report for tonight. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Harbeck. What a great video, and thank you for being here, Crystal. I just have a few brief updates for my President's Report. The first is an event coming up the day before our next board meeting. I put a brochure on your desk. It's the 10th Annual Border Battle, which is a golf scramble fundraiser at Wild Ridge Golf Course, benefiting the Homeless Children and Youth Fund of the Eau Claire Public Schools Foundation, which goes a long way every year in sustaining our homeless program and allowing them to provide what they need for kids. So you don't have to come and golf, but they would just love to have board members there And if you want to help out, volunteer and signing people in, or just spending the day walking around and talking to folks, it'll be a great time. So I wanted to make sure that was on your radar. And also wanted to share at our meeting the Adopt a Backpack program, which is going on strong this summer. You can choose a backpack, bring it home, decide which grade you'd like to create a backpack for, fill it with grade level items, and you can complete the adoption tag attached to the backpack and return it to the school of your choice or to the school district office. There's a lot more information on Facebook, and it's called ECASD Adopt a Backpack, so definitely check that out. September 10th at our board meeting will include any resolutions that we would like to submit to the WASB State Convention in January. So between now and September 10th, if you would like to work on a resolution or just help and join us for that meeting, let me know, and we're going to get that scheduled in the next couple days. And finally, I just have to give a plug. I've been roped in to be a contestant on this year's Dancing with the Eau Claire Stars, which is a fundraiser for the Eau Claire Children's Theater. So if you'd like to go on there, you can vote online for us to be the Fan Favorite Award. It's $1 a vote, and it goes to the Children's Theater. And you can learn more about that fundraising event at dancingwiththeeauclairestars.com. So that's it for my President's Report, and that takes us now to the School Board Committee reports. Do we have any committees that would like to share an update this evening? Budget Development Committee has not met. Okay. LEAP? Yes.
Yes, we met last Tuesday. The folks from Indy were there to give a very brief update. We discussed the membership of the committee, and then we are also working on our reviewing and working on the policy revisions for our committee.
Wonderful. Thank you. And we'll have that, I'm assuming, in September, October at some point. Okay, thanks. Commissioner Torres.
We met this morning in the Policy and Governance Committee, and we have a reviewed version of our policy for social media, which is in the agenda for tonight.
Perfect. Thank you. And that takes us to our legislative update, which is also Commissioner Torres.
There's only one important update, and that is as of August the 1st, 2018, we have a new PI 34 piece of legislation that regulates educator licenses. It has a revised version, revised language for teacher standards, administrative standards, and pupil services standards. Regulates also the license stages in tiers 1, 2, 3, and 4. Identifies teaching areas and defines to great detail pupil services areas.
Excellent. Thank you. That takes us now to our consent resolution agenda. So we will consider all of this. If you'd like to pull an item, just let me know. So I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of August 6th, 2018, the minutes of closed session, August 6th, 2018, budget adjustments from July 2018, gifts in the amount of $28,841 for the period of July 1, 2018 through July 31, 2018. Payment of all bills in the amount of $10,720,963.08, and net payroll in the amount of $3,404,622.25 for the period of July 1, 2018 through July 31, 2018. And finally, the Human Resources and Employment Report. So I would entertain a motion to approve 7.2 through 7.7.
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. And we'll have a roll call vote on this one.
Commissioner Torres,
Yes.
Commissioner Vu,
Yes.
Commissioner Bika,
Yes.
Commissioner Hambach-Boyle,
Yes.
Commissioner Klinkhammer,
Yes.
Commissioner Luginbill.
Yes. And that motion passes. And that takes us now to our individually considered resolutions. And our first 8.1 is the adoption of a resolution in support of increasing special education funding in Wisconsin public schools to 90% of the cost incurred. And I know this was provided via email for board members, but now is the time if anyone has any questions about this. I don't know if Commissioner Humbuck-Boyle, if you'd like to speak to it, or, yeah, go ahead.
I can. The Department of Public Instruction invited the Wisconsin Public Education Network into their budget development meeting this year, which was fun to be invited to do that. And they were discussing the reimbursement rate for special education and what that would look like within their budget. And with the help of a very deep dialogue with people in their audience, they did come forth with the idea of funding it at least at the level that they are doing it within the special education voucher in our private school piece. So given some information that Milwaukee Public Schools put together, we worked kind of volleying emails back and forth to put a resolution together. Shorewood is going to present theirs to their board tomorrow night. West Dallas has already passed one, and so I sent it to you a couple weeks ago so you could mull that information over once we got it done. And it's now being put on the Wisconsin Public Education Network website so other people can use it as well. And I think WASB's interested in doing a resolution to update what they are recommended in the past for special education to this as well. So
it's great work, and thank you, Commissioner Humbuck-Boyle. Are there any questions or comments about the resolution? Okay, seeing none, would you like to read it, Commissioner Humbuck-Boyle? Okay.
Somebody else can read it if they want.
Okay, would anyone else like to read it? Okay, I guess it's you.
The Eau Claire School District School Board Resolution.
Could you turn your microphone on? You're good.
The Eau Claire School District School Board Resolution in support of increasing special education funding in Wisconsin public schools to 90% of the cost incurred. Whereas it is the responsibility of the 422 local Wisconsin public school districts to support the educational needs of all students, including those who are differently abled. And whereas the federal government has a stated commitment to fund 40% of the costs of supporting students with special needs, but funds merely 15%. And whereas the state of Wisconsin had statutory language to fund over 60% of costs related to these students, but now funds merely 26%. And whereas the state of Wisconsin has not increased funding in public school special education categorical aid for a decade, but has increased it for private schools using the special education scholarship. And whereas the Legislative Fiscal Bureau recently concluded that because of the historic underfunding by the state and federal governments, public school districts must now fund over $1 billion to cover the educational costs associated with implementing individualized education programs, IEPs. And whereas as a result of this underfunding, districts across Wisconsin must cut critical programs supporting the education of the rest of their students to support the legislatively mandated special education needs. And whereas Wisconsin now has special needs scholarships, vouchers, which benefit students in private schools, and whereas these vouchers serve children, 75% of whom already were in private schools, and allow private schools to leave children with the greatest special education needs in the public schools. And whereas Wisconsin public schools are required by law to continue serving all special education students in private schools, whether or not they receive a voucher, putting public schools out more money to pay for these public school special education educators, such as teachers, physical occupational therapists, and speech language pathologists. And whereas private voucher schools, despite getting increased funding for special needs students, are not required to have certified, licensed special education staff, and whereas these special needs vouchers for private schools are paid at a 90% reimbursement rate, while students with the greatest special needs in Wisconsin public schools are only funded by a 26% reimbursement rate. Whereas the Eau Claire School District would increase special education funding by $11,846,406 when using the same percentage of reimbursement, 90%, presently used for private schools. Further, it is believed that Wisconsin public school children are worth reimbursement equal to that of private school children. Therefore, be it resolved that the Eau Claire School District calls on Governor Walker, the Wisconsin State Assembly, and the Wisconsin State Senate to increase reimbursement for public schools to a rate of 90% for special needs students matching the reimbursement rate given to private schools under the legislated Special Needs Scholarship Program. In witness whereof, the School Board of the Eau Claire Area School District has executed this resolution on the 20th day of August 2018.
Having read that through, I would entertain a motion to approve this resolution as presented.
So move.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right. This resolution is adopted. Next, that takes us to 8.2, which is the adoption of new policy 821, titled Social Media for District-Supported Sites. So the district's communication committee drafted a new policy for us. It was reviewed by our legal counsel, the Policy and Governance Committee, and the board at our August 6th meeting. And we met again with our legal counsel this morning and just had two brief changes to two paragraphs in this policy. So I will ask Commissioner Torres to read the two updated paragraphs, and once we're done with that, then we can discuss and move to adopt this policy.
New language was proposed for the first paragraph, and it reads, the Eau Claire Area School District understands the value of social media and the benefits offered by digital communications devices to enhance and supplement the dissemination of important and time-sensitive information delivered by the district's website at ecasd.us. This policy is intended to inform all those visiting an ECASD-supported social media page or site, for example, users, as to what they may post on a district-sponsored social media platform. The ECASD does not intend to use social media to replace the district's official website and other official communication channels. That is ecasd.us, Skyward, Your Voice, and school newsletters. And then new language was proposed for the acceptable comments section. The district shall create content on its social media sites. When replies or comments to district-created content are allowed, the comments must be responsive to the subject matter of the original post. The district reserves the right to remove comments that are off-topic and shall remove comments that exceed 100 words. The district reserves the right to respond to comments by directing users to take advantage of the district's official online platform titled Your Voice, which is available at the ecasd.us homepage.
Thank you, Commissioner Torres. Do board members have any comments or questions regarding this draft? Or staff? You have something, Mr. Schmidt?
Yeah, I just think we should probably put a www dot in front of the ecasd.us. The website is to have, I think, the full email or the full web address.
Yeah, that's fine.
A couple times. There's two places, I think.
Do all of our policies mirror that? If we put in a URL, do we usually use the www dot?
I know if you I'm typed in ecasd.us just now, and it doesn't come up. The website doesn't, but if you add the www dot in front of it, it does.
Okay.
Technicality, but I think we should probably have the official site up there.
Okay. Anyone have an issue with that? Okay. Any other questions or comments regarding this policy? Okay. Seeing none, then I would entertain a motion to adopt new policy 821 as presented.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All right. This policy is adopted. And now we are done with our formal business for the evening, and now we will adjourn to committee. Our committee reports, and our first is a preliminary budget discussion of school board priorities. Ms. Johnson.
All right, so tonight my presentation is about an update on the budget process and where we currently are in our budget process for the 18-19 school year. And I just want to remind everybody that you do not recommend a budget until the end of October because we are waiting on additional information from DPI, and we don't receive that information until October 15th. So we'll bring forth a recommended budget, but the final budget isn't approved until the end of October. And so I know we have a few new people on our board this time with the budget, and I wanted to just make sure that you are aware of that right up front. So the first slide that I wanted to talk about is a budget breakdown and how does that equate in terms of a dollar. And so we took a visual to try to help kind of explain that to the board and also the public. So for every dollar, about 78% of that equates to salary and fringes based upon our people, which makes a lot of sense because we are a people industry. If we look at the next 15%, that's contracted services. That's going to be our transportation, it's going to be our substitutes, it's going to be a lot of those things that we're contracting for people to provide services for us. If we look at our next 4%, that's supplies. That's going to be our workbooks, that's going to be consumable things that the buildings need in a classroom for students. 2% is capital, and when I talk about capital, that's going to be equipment, large equipment purchases that we need each year to keep our departments up and running and functioning properly. And then the last 1% is related to insurance costs, debt, and other things that would fall into that category. And so just again to reiterate, we do expect the bulk of our budget to be in salaries and fringes, and that makes sense because we're a people industry, and that's represented here as well. The other thing I want to make sure everybody recognizes is that it takes us a long time to prepare our budget and get it all put together to bring to the school board. And so I'm going to talk a few things about some important things that you need to know, and then we'll actually look at our budget calendar. So important things to remember and things that you need to know is that we're one of the only public entities that prepares our budget in front of everybody. And so we come to the school board, we come to budget development many times over the course of our budget process to talk about things that decisions need to be made on and making the board and budget development aware of those requests. And again, it's very open because we don't have anything to hide. We also start at zero every year. We take the zero-based approach, so each department, each principal, each person that has a budget responsibility for the district starts at zero every year, and they build their budget from the bottom up. And so they evaluate their needs and what do I need for the next year, and how does that impact my students? How does that impact my learning? We do the same thing with staffing. We start at zero each year and we look at class size, and our goal is to be in that mid-targeted class size policy that the board has established for us. And each department is also considered independent of those class sizes. For example, administration, media, counselors, social workers, psychs, pupil services, and special ed. Those are all outside of the class size policy and are reviewed carefully every single year so we can ensure that we're meeting our students' needs and goals. We also look at programs and expenses each year because things change. Some things that are legislated may change, and other programs are just continuing based upon other reasons, and so those are evaluated every year as well. The advantage to us by doing that is we look at our operations in full every single year, and we're looking for the budget justification and any changes that are needed. And then the final piece is the adoption. The adoption of our budget happens 4 months after our fiscal year begins. And so it's, you know, that culmination of all of the time that it takes, but we're 4 months, a quarter into our fiscal year before we have that final adopted budget. And so we always have to be thinking about that and looking forward because we know when we start the year we don't have that formally adopted budget yet. If we look at our 2018-2019 budget timeline, we're always developing that calendar and modifying and looking at how do we meet those certain benchmarks throughout the year. We established the calendar in January and try to get all of our documents finalized so we can start meeting with our budget administrators. We individually meet with each building principal, individually meet with each department and their finance people as well to talk about where are you at in your 17-18 budget, and what do we think 18-19 is going to look like? What are some things that are high priorities for your department? And so that conversation about building the budget begins with those groups back in February. Then in March, that's kind of when that staffing process begins, and that takes a lot of time as well. We know in March, we typically know what retirements we have and how many positions we are potentially going to be looking at due to retirements. In March to mid-April, we have staff preparing their budget requests. The staffing process is going on. They're entering their budget requests for my department, so that way that we can start getting those reviewed and start building that budget in order to present. From May to September, we have ongoing times where we're reviewing our budget requests. We're bringing some forward to budget development. We're going back to departments. We're going back to principals and assisting and asking questions if things aren't making sense to us or there's significant changes. We try to get all of that information knowing that we're going to be asked those questions as well, so we can answer questions that we might get. And we kind of call that our reconciliation process. We are continually reconciling and looking at departments and buildings, and then how does that impact the full operating budget? Because certain departments may have a swing up, but others may have a swing down, and so we're always trying to evaluate and being able to explain what those differences are. July 1st, we always get our estimated state aid from DPI. Now that's just an estimate because they don't know what our third Friday count is going to be and how that enrollment impacts our budget for that upcoming year. So they give us a pretty good idea based upon last year's numbers, but we don't know that final number for sure again until October 15th. Once we start the school year, the third Friday is very important to us in the month of September because that's when DPI locks in our enrollment. And so they use that count that we submit by the end of September to finalize that aid calculation and aid certification they provide to us on October 15th. In September, the board will typically receive a preliminary budget, and here's what we think is going to happen to give some time to review. And basically at that point in time, we still don't have those finalized enrollment numbers, so that's always one of the pieces that we update for that final budget. On October 15th, we get our certification from DPI. That gives us our final revenue limit and the final state aid amount that we're going to receive. Keep in mind, that's almost 90% of our operating budget, and so we don't have that final number, again, till almost 4 months into the fiscal year. And we do get that certified by DPI, but we're always checking and making sure that the reports we have submitted matches what DPI is telling us. Then we get to October 15th through October 25th. That's a very busy time for us because we're taking that final data from DPI and getting the updates and changes needed into our final budget, which we present to the board for adoption at the end of October. And by state statute, we have to have a formally adopted budget by October 30th. And so depending on when the 15 falls and the other things that we need to change, can be a very quick turnaround time for us to get that information to the school board. If we look at kind of calendar and departments that are involved, again, we talked in January about finalizing the budget instructions. That's the business services department that's doing that. When we get into February, we have meetings with individuals having budget responsibilities. That's going to include the business services team, principals, as well as directors. From March to September is the staffing process, and there are multiple people involved with that as well, and primarily it would be the Human Resources Department, principals, and exec team. In March and April, we have staff entering and preparing their budgets. That could be staff from department chairs, it could be secretaries, principals, and administrators. July 1st, again, is that key date when we get our initial state aid amount from DPI, and that's important to me because I want to see what that looks like. From May to September, again, we're going through and reviewing those budget requests, processing them, developing department budgets, reconciling the requests, and then putting it together and seeing at where do we look like from an overall budget and reconciling. And that's, again, in the business service department. In September, you know, we get kids that arrive, and that impacts all of our staff because we're excited to have the kids back. On the third Friday count, that's going to impact the Executive Director of Administration's office and also the buildings as they're submitting that data to that department. And then staffing is finalized against once we have that final third Friday count because we know exactly how many kids are here and what we need for staff. And again, that impacts the Human Resources Department, principals, and exec teams. On October 15th, again, we get that final aid certification from DPI, and that's impactful to the business service department, so we can finalize that budget for the board. Again, on October 16th through 25th, the business services department is working to get all of those things needed to finalize and get that final budget adoption to the board. And then that last week of October is really the responsibility of the school board to finalize and adopt that formal budget. The budget, what I want your takeaway to be from this screen is that there is a lot of collaboration going on with this budget and the amount of time that it takes to get to our final project. And all of the requests are considered and reviewed in comparison to the district's strategic plan and also the strategic priorities set forth by the board. It's, again, a very open process, and we start the same process every single year. We always start at 0, and we're always asking for input from all of our staff. And numbers are constantly changing. It's a moving target because we're waiting on those final numbers from DPI that we don't receive until October. Some of the things that we reconcile in September and October are staffing, because after the third Friday, we know exactly how many kids are here. So staffing and the third Friday student count really go together because that kind of finalizes and locks our staffing in for the year. State aid is certified on October 15th. We get our final computer aid number also on October 15th. We can set our tax levy after October 15th. We finalize our transportation expense, and that final budget reconciliation is presented to the board from the preliminary budget to that adopted budget. And so you can see that that's a lot of things that happen in September and October, and those are really critical, important pieces to our budget that we don't have a lot of control over until we get those final numbers on October 15th. And so again, keep in mind, it may not look like we're doing a lot, but behind the scenes we really are getting prepared to bring that final project, or that final product of a budget to the board. So let's talk about our dollar again, and let's put it into cents this time. So 78 cents of our budget is considered salary and fringes. That 15 cents is contracted services, 4 cents for supplies, 2 cents for capital, and a penny on insurance and debt and other. So I will open it up to questions for the board.
Well, I could say. So I always like to ask this question, and I know the answer, but I ask it so that people kind of learn from this wonderful presentation, Abby. Way to do it with the dollar. That was really good, too. But I don't think everybody always understands the biennium budget either, and that every 2 years we're impacted as well, and that oftentimes things are legislated that we have to pay for that we actually don't have any pre-warning about. We often go to our WASB meetings after the biennium budgets, and we've got 30 pages worth of mandates that are, and often many of them don't come with funding. So, I mean, you didn't really talk about that, but I think it's really, for me as a school board member, it was amazing to find out that we only look 2 years ahead, and oftentimes that makes it really hard for us to do what we would really like to do for our kids and our families, that all 11,300 kiddos. So I just wanted to say that. Thanks.
Well, and I want to thank you, Ms. Johnson, for your presentation, and I really appreciate that you talked about the open aspect of our budget process with respect to other government agencies, because when I look at what we do as opposed to even like at the city level, city government, county government, where usually the staff will compile and present a completed budget, proposed budget to the committees. With us, it's really, you start from scratch. We start from, like you say, you start from the base. And I think that we have a really uniquely engaging and democratic process with our budget, through our budget committee and through the board. And we put it all out there. And, I think it's unfortunate that when we do that, it sometimes is misconstrued because, obviously if you add up everything on the wish list for this coming year, it is $5.8 million. But again, we have, like every level of government has, a reconciliation process every single year. You look at the wants, you look at the needs, and see what you can do. So I guess just logistically, we're looking at September for the Budget Development Committee to continue the work on this. and then bringing it back to the board. Obviously looking at strategic plan as a guidepost, but I think also as far as our priorities are concerned, and I'm just speaking as one person, but obviously we've made the commitment to high quality staff as our greatest priority, whether it's through our lane changes, the new salary plan, CPI, that's obviously a priority, and also the technology piece. I think the decision we'll have to make, and that I think the Budget Development Committee will hopefully talk about, is with some of the other tiered pieces, you know, 150,000 here, 350,000 there for different programs or different initiatives, looking at how can we potentially phase these pieces to integrate them throughout the school district over the course of 3 years or 4 years. What's going to be the most prudent way to implement these things, which we of course want to implement all of it, but what is the best way to do that? Obviously knowing that with every dollar that we spend, we have that visual that so much of it is accounted for. So again, I really appreciate your presentation, and I think it puts things in a very helpful context for not only the board, but hopefully for the community. But do any other board members have questions about where we're at this stage in the process? Comments? Okay. I don't see any, so obviously the Budget Development Committee, they're going to be meeting in a month, and we're going to continue this process, and thank you very much for the presentation. Because this is a committee report, does anyone in the public have a desire to speak? Okay. Not seeing anyone, we're going to move on to our next agenda item. And we're trucking right along. Our next agenda item is a revenue planning presentation.
So this is a presentation that President Luganville and I are going to do together. And this came out of a conversation that he and I had after some professional development that both of us went through kind of separately. As the superintendent of schools and as the school board president. We've both been in contact with organizations from across the United States to gain ideas for our district. This summer I met with various leaders across the country in my role as Vice President of the Urban Superintendents Association of America, as well as in my work in Wisconsin in WASDA. And I've also met with some representatives for school districts in China. And President Luganville has attended the Local Progress Conference and Young Elected Officials Conference and took those opportunities to network with U.S. school board members to learn from their districts. He's also been elected to chair the U.S. Education Committee for the United Nations during the summer and has forged connections there as well. So I think rather serendipitously, through our professional development, we both found that many districts across Wisconsin, across the United States, and even across the world are looking for new sources of revenue to expand services, to meet student needs, and to advance innovation. And over the summer, President Luganville and I have been exploring various ideas that might equip and enable the district to thrive in a different way. We have looked at over 25 preliminary concepts and proposals, and today we want to talk about 9 major themes that we have found. You know, I think the norm has been that in times of budgetary uncertainty, we've traditionally looked to these 3 areas to make the difference. Cuts in services, raises in local property taxes, or we've asked the state for more resources. Over the course of 24 years, the school district has been forced to make serious cuts to services and programs to the tune of millions of dollars, including school closures. Our community very graciously approved a referendum in November 2016 to meet 25 years of deferred maintenance needs to help support our compensation for teachers, to help us secure our technology sources for our staff and our students. And we have joined with WASB and WASDA in their work to see an increase in per pupil funding. Many of us have testified to the Joint Finance Committee and the Blue Ribbon Commission on school funding.
So we've done a lot as a district and as a board, and the question that we're asking tonight is that good enough? And the fourth option that we would really like for the board and district to explore is in many ways taking control of our own destiny. Tonight's conversation will hopefully be about how we as a board and as a staff can be transformational leaders and think outside the box to increase revenue for our students, first and foremost. This is the first time that we will have discussed this as a board, as a district really, and we look forward to our conversations tonight in terms of getting the board's thinking about some of these ideas. And I want to put things in context. 160 years. We've had public schools in Eau Claire for over 160 years now. That's how long we've been a crucial foundation of our community. So while we do face a great deal of systemic challenges, we have so many opportunities as well. So it's important to know that where we sit as we talk about thinking creatively and thinking boldly as a district. In my opinion, we are living in an unprecedented time of connectivity and engagement and really a new era of innovation. And even with our challenges, we have the chance to harness so many opportunities. And it's also important to emphasize our collective power as a school district as we talk about revenue and as we talk about moving forward. It's so crucial to emphasize that we are the largest government entity in the Chippewa Valley in terms of our facilities that we maintain and operate, in terms of our budget that we approve each and every year, in terms of the number of staff that we employ, and the clients that we work with each and every day, the young clients that we work with. We are a larger organization than any area, city, county, or school district, with a larger budget and more employees than even the university and technical college. We're also the 8th largest district in the state, the 3rd largest employer in the region, and we spend over $21 million with 610 area businesses every year, give or take a few. But we're a true economic driver already, and we must consistently establish and reestablish that role as an economic driver, as a leading public entity in the Chippewa Valley, an institution that is bringing the community into the future through forward-thinking policies, innovative programs, and exciting methods of education. So as we talk about this tonight, we must always be given a seat at the table as a district, as a crucial stakeholder. And if we are not currently given a chair to sit at some tables out there, we're going to bring one. So I want to talk about some ideas. These are just some areas for us to look at and for the board to potentially consider in the future. Number one, talking about new educational programs as a school district, as a source of revenue and as a driving force for change in our district. I think the first area has a lot of promise. This could include a virtual charter school and or virtual credit recovery school, as well as international student study camps and international tuition-based programming at the high school level. This could also include the creation of additional Tier 3 programming, therapeutic, school services programming, ecotherapy programming, and workplace satellite programs and trade schools in partnership with the business community. Number two is, I think, one of the most important and really takes a mindset shift and a culture shift, and that's about establishing our position as a district. Looking at all of our agreements with non-governmental organizations, with corporations, with government entities, of which we have hundreds, looking at all of those MOUs, looking at all of those agreements to make sure that they are mutually beneficial and not one-sided in terms of our obligations and our financial and otherwise commitment as a school district. That's really important. The other are copywriting and licensing of ECASD created materials and programs. You know, as the 8th largest district in the state, over the course of many years, we've had some incredibly innovative pieces of programming, curriculum that our staff and students have been a part of. And so how do we harness that moving forward? And looking at our real estate, housing, and development potential as a school district, but also as the large government entity that we are, that covers hundreds of square miles throughout this region and owns substantial amounts of real estate and of land. You know, that could include completing a survey of the land that we currently own, working with a consultant to determining opportunities in the future for our district. Partnerships with financial institutions, and it really even goes beyond the partnerships with financial institutions, but partnerships, public-private partnerships as a school district. There have been many public-private partnerships in our community over the past several years. They've been a driving force for change and development in our community, but one of the things that I often hear in the community from even fellow board members and from staff is, where is the school district in all of this? Where is the school district at the table with the developments that are happening? And so harnessing that potential as well, and potentially looking at the establishment of additional programming or partnerships to that end. So there's a great deal there, and it's really an exciting list, and these are 9 of the 25 that we've talked about. But again, that's 25 just from the two of us putting our heads together and thinking about how we have 1,400 employees. We have 7 really talented board members. We have an incredibly dedicated executive team. So just thinking about the collective power that we could have and the kinds of areas that we could be talking about if we put our heads together on this. So that's why we're so interested in embarking on this conversation and on this journey together.
So I would say that, you know, this is an idea that came out of a conversation. I guess our next step is that we'd like to formalize this conversation a little bit and ask the board to consider the creation of an ad hoc revenue committee to be charged with identifying and researching revenue ideas for the district and presenting their findings and recommendations to the full board and the superintendent on an ongoing basis, with the first full report maybe to come in January. The proposed membership of this committee would be 2 school board members, educators from each level, principals from each level, a few executive team members, students, parents, business community members, and others who represent diverse perspectives across our community. Throughout the month of September, we could advertise for committee members, and then members might be appointed at the first meeting or second meeting in October. And we would want all board members to share their ideas with the committee and to kind of continue our intention to be collaborative and to develop partnerships in our community as part of our strategic plan. So,
you know, I'm really excited that we can bring this to you tonight, have this conversation, start this conversation. As I used the phrase transformational leaders earlier, and that's really what we all are as board members and as leaders within the school district. And so, you know, it was Walt Disney who said, if you can dream it, you can do it. And that first process in it is to dream it. So we're very excited to continue this conversation and open it up to any ideas, questions, or comments that you may have. Commissioner Vu.
3 ideas. First of all, what history has this topic been exist before? In other words, what kind of things we did in the past along this topic? Secondly, how does this topic fit in the Eau Claire School District Foundation Department? And third, can this topic be a potential discussion topic during board retreat?
Well, the third one, I definitely think yes, as far as the retreat. The piece about the history in the past, in talking with folks from the History Club at the museum, some of those individuals and folks who've been involved potentially in the past, including previous school board members, when I've asked about revenue, they talked a lot about state aid and referendum and bond issues and things like that. So as far as looking systemically at advancing revenue in the district through new opportunities or new programming or new partnerships, it doesn't appear, at least from the individuals that I've talked to in recent history, that it has been discussed at great length beyond, again, the local and state revenue piece.
And so Abby Johnson could probably give us a little summary of the things that we do now that increase revenue.
Sure, I think that we're always looking for opportunities that we can do and add things, and I think some of the things that we look at right now, I would say our summer school program is a big proponent of that, because we're trying to get additional partnerships and with our community members, because that does increase our enrollment, and therefore it impacts our enrollment account that we get on, certified in our aid on October 15th. By working on that, it takes 3 years for us to see that full increase, but each year we're working for it, then that increases our enrollment number. That one comes to mind right away. I'm sure there's other things that we're doing. I think some of the advertising contracts that we've been working with and doing in hopes to promote the school district as well, and offer additional partnerships with the businesses. The community partnerships are the first ones that come to mind, because they're very important, and that's part of the board's strategic plan. Yeah, that's this. Yeah, Daktronics, Jim. Mr. Schmidt just mentioned the Daktronics school scoreboards that we have in each of the buildings. Kim and I worked on one today, a potential one that might be coming forward, and so we would be able to provide updates. But again, just as things come to us, reviewing that and looking for opportunities that we could develop another partnership or another idea that we could look at to bring in more revenue. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you. A comment? Yeah, Commissioner Humboldt-Boyle.
I have an example. In the years that I've been in the district, long before I even was on the school board, we talked about third source funding. And some of it as far as some of the products that we would come up. And we had a Bright Beginnings brochure that was written collaboratively with our community that is just solid, basic, normal development, birth to age 9. So it was birth through grade 3. So it spanned the early childhood years. We put it, and I think one of the roadblocks we had at the time was the piece on here about copywriting and having a piece within the district that really supported, if you had a good product such as that there was a way for us to understand how to copyright and go through that process. I got a book and I read it, but we never had the support for that, and I see that on the list. And it is still sitting here. Normal development, childhood development does not vary. We have it in English, Spanish, and in Hmong. And in the years that we first started with that brochure, I took it to every kind of place I went to as far as conferences, and we made $50,000 on that brochure without doing much. But it took a long time to get it on our website and to do that whole process so people could get a hold of it. So I think this is a great idea, and I think there's lots of potential in a lot of things we've done as a district, because we've done amazing things in this district that we certainly could share with others. So that's still sitting in boxes. I know where they are. That would be a project that we could even look at already. So thank you for bringing this up. I'm very happy about this.
Thank you. And like we said in the presentation, we'd look to put a committee together, put a charge together for the next meeting for you to consider, just the creation of that ad hoc committee, and then certainly look for board members who'd be interested in being a part of that. Do any other board members have questions at this time about? I know it's a lot to take in, And so, but hopefully this will be the start of a very long and engaging and exciting process for us as a district. So, any other questions or comments? Okay. Anyone in the audience have a comment? No. I don't see anyone? No? Okay. So moving on from that item then, we'll go to 10.3, which is our biannual communication plan status report. And I see Ms. Kohler coming up.
Good evening. So twice a year, the Communications Committee provides you with an update on some of the work that they've been doing in the previous 6 months. So that is what I'm going to do today. Some of this is new to me, and it wasn't necessarily work that I was deeply familiar with, so I will answer questions and share information the best I can. Others I have been part of in the last 6 weeks or so, and I'll be able to fill you in on a little bit more. Just a quick review. The Communications Committee is a committee that is aligned to our strategic plan, really looking at how are we partnering with families in the community. Specifically trying to develop, according to our priority 5.1, a district-wide communication plan that assures that all communications are streamlined, timely, and transparent. So you can see that is one of the purposes of the committee. Second purpose of the committee is to establish clear, consistent communications with family, community members, and current and prospective staff. I think the important theme in that bullet is consistent communication. We also are working to develop workflow both for our internal and external communications and through a variety of media and formats. We're quite an eclectic group, so you can see here who the members are. Mr. Schmidt, I noticed your name is still on there. Yes. So Mr. Schmidt, prior to July 1st, was the facilitator of the committee, and it's now transferred to me, but we couldn't take his name off. And the role of the committee is really to make recommendations to the executive team. So you'll see some of the work that the committee does is we dig into research a little bit, we explore partnerships with communities, with the community, we look at how can we work with local businesses to really help with our communication, and we bring that back to the executive team. The exec team then provides feedback on that information, or might ask us to bring something to you, or might ask us to share things with building principals. The committee then takes that feedback, makes any changes, or finalizes things. And so what have we done in the last 6 months? A couple of board meetings ago, we saw, or perhaps it was the last one, we saw the video on summer school programming. That was the work of the Communications Committee, just really trying to create some videos that help us get our story out. And so we've been sharing those videos on our website. We've been using them as an example at parent-teacher conferences for all parents to see. We've really been trying to use those videos as one way to share who are we as the Eau Claire Area School District. We anticipate that we'll continue to produce videos. Right now, the committee is looking at trying to determine a focus for the video, so being very targeted in which videos we're creating and why we're creating them, so that they meet the needs that, that we've identified. The committee also worked to strengthen community partnerships, we have become more visible as a district at community events. So for example, we had booths at the Dabble Day at the Memorial Public Library, PBIS Kids Get Up and Go at the library, Family Day downtown, Senior Americans Day at UWEC at the International Fair. The Eau Claire School District was represented. And so we've really been trying to not only have partnerships with the community where we're looking for the community to really help us with something, but also us helping the community. And so you'll see a greater visibility of the Eau Claire School District at those events. So one of the great things that created was demand for the Eau Claire School District to be places. And so right now, the committee has developed a sustainable plan for staff representation at those community events. And that plan will be rolled out within the next 4 to 6 weeks. The idea being that when events come up, we will have a way to say, yes, the Eau Claire School District would love to be there. And then we'll be able to make that happen. We're also developing consistency in branding. So last time Mr. Schmidt was up here, you heard a little bit about the branding committee. And what the branding committee does is it really helps us internally to identify who are we as the Eau Claire Area School District and what sets us apart from similarly situated organizations. So what is it that we do? What is it that we do really well? And how do we communicate that? So we're looking for that clear, consistent communication in everything that we do. So last year, the branding committee really took some time to reflect and to help us develop a branding statement, an internally facing statement that said, this is who the Eau Claire School District is. And this is what we do really well. And next year, year 2 of the branding committee, will really be how are we going to communicate that? And how will that show in everything that we do? So how do we make it visible on our signs? How do we make it visible in our letterhead? How are we clear and consistent in the words that we use and the focus that we have? And so that is the work of the branding committee, which is actually a subgroup of the communication committee. I would anticipate by the end of the 18-19 school year, we'll have a branding manual, which will help folks that work in the Eau Claire School District to know the answers to some of those questions. When do we use a certain logo, or how do we refer to meeting times, that sort of thing. So really getting down to that granular level of consistency so it starts to sound like Eau Claire Area School District. This is one of the things that we've been working on with that consistency and branding is the development of school logos. So we have a priority list just kind of based on the current state of the logos in the district. This is the unveiling of the new Prairie Ridge logo, which was just finalized about 4 or 5 weeks ago. We've been working with a few schools on the process of developing those logos and then really helping them know when do you use a logo, how do you preserve that logo and make sure that your communication is true to it so that it doesn't start to morph into different things and then pretty soon you have 3 logos that could all be used and people don't know which one to use in which situation. So we're trying to build some consistency with that. We also took an inventory of the exterior signs at each school and really tried to answer the question, can you tell from the exterior signs that this is part of the Eau Claire Area School District? And if you cannot tell from the exterior sign, what do we need to do differently? So that, again, we start to communicate, here's who we are, and we increase that presence and the visibility in the community. I already touched on the production of the videos to share our story. The committee, this slide made me giggle, because the committee also said we've successfully transitioned leadership to the new executive director of administration, which is me. And so in the last 6 months, Mr. Schmidt has handed things off, and I'm trying to carry the baton forward. So we'll see what happens in the next 6 months to come. Here's a few things that we anticipate. Reinforcing trainings and continuing, the development for principals around communications and what is it that we're looking at as far as the communications committee and as a district, what do we want to portray? We anticipate that we will need to continue to work with principals and other staff around that. We'll continue to review and revise communications related policies and look at our website to build consistency. That was one of the changes Mr. Schmidt had reported on earlier. We want to make sure that we're providing a consistent feel to our websites, and so what does that look and sound like? And we have a marketing intern or youth apprentice working with the committee again this year. So we'll be helping a high school student build some of their repertoire around marketing, and they'll be helping us to implement some of the work that we're hoping to do. Questions?
I don't see any questions, but thank you for this great presentation. And I know the ad works. And I just saw our enrollment one as well. The enroll today at the movies last night.
I was going to say, have you gone to the movies lately?
Yes, Mike on Cinemas. It was playing last night. So.
Excellent.
And it was well received, so that was good.
Perfect.
Yeah, thanks for all the hard work. It's greatly appreciated. Thanks.
All right, so that takes us now to our final two agenda items, which are two policies that have come through, been approved by the Policy and Governance Committee, and are also both supported by administration. So the first is 10.4, which is Policy 441.3, Student Assisted Voter Registration. So if nobody objects, we can read this into the record and then discuss. Would anyone like to volunteer to read it? Okay, I'll read this one. The Eau Claire School Board supports the civic engagement of its students as a responsibility in the Eau Claire Area School District core values. To that end, the district shall facilitate assisted voter registration to promote student involvement in the electoral process. ECASD high schools shall offer to all students who will reach the age of majority by the next scheduled election with the opportunity to register as voters. Registration shall take place within the school with staff, student government representatives, and/or nonpartisan community volunteers. Voter registration information shall be made available on the district website, through the school newsletter and school emails, in the principal's office, library, guidance office, or other similarly accessible locations throughout the school year. Information about voter registration and civic participation shall be incorporated in high school social studies classes in alignment with Wisconsin state curriculum standards. High school newsletters shall include periodic information educating students about the process of voter registration. Eligible high school students may be excused from school to be a poll worker or poll observer in local elections. And we cross-reference the state social studies standards, which include the mandate regarding voter registration information and civic education. So, are there any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, that one will be placed for approval at our next meeting in September. And our final agenda item for tonight is revisions for the first time in, I believe, 18 years to Policy 723.2, which is reporting threats of violence. And I'd love somebody else to read this one.
All right.
Perfect.
Any school employee who believes in good faith that there is a serious and imminent threat to the health or safety of any student, any school employee, or the public, based on a threat that has been made by an individual seen in the course of the employee's professional duties regarding violence or in or targeted at a school or school-sanctioned activity, shall report the threat as required by state law and this policy. In particular, 1, the facts and circumstance contributing to the belief that there is such a serious and imminent threat shall be reported immediately by telephone or personally directly to a law enforcement agency. 2, the person making the report to law enforcement shall also immediately inform the building principal of the nature of the threat and circumstances. Such notice to a responsible administrator or supervisor in the district does not have to be given prior to contacting a law enforcement agency. 3, the building principal shall notify the superintendent immediately after the call to law enforcement has been made. This policy and the obligation to immediately report a serious or imminent threat of school-related violence also applies to any other person who is acting as an agent of the district, that is a contracted service provider, who is specified as a mandatory reporter of threats of school violence under state law. The administration shall promptly evaluate and process known threats of school-related violence according to the district's school safety plan and under any other established procedures for responding to safety emergencies. The district shall not take any disciplinary action against a school employee, discriminate against an employee in regard to employment, or threaten an employee with any such treatment for making a report of threatened school violence in good faith under this policy. School employees may be subject to district disciplinary action as well as penalties under the state law for failure to report such threats. All district employees shall receive training provided by the Department of Public Instruction in the state laws governing the reporting of a threat of school violence within the first 6 months after commencing employment and at least once every 5 years after that initial training. If a student has made if there is reason to suspect that a student has made a threat of school-related violence, the district shall conduct an investigation of the relevant facts and circumstances and determine any appropriate school disciplinary consequences or other response. The superintendent or his or her designee is authorized to seek payment from appropriate parties for costs and other damages, including for lost instructional time and other disruptions of operations that may be associated with any threatened, attempted, or actual act of school-related violence.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Torres. You're welcome. Do any board members have questions or comments regarding this updated policy language? Okay. Seeing none.
I have a question.
Oh, you do, Commissioner
Did
Beaker.
the committee consider including mention of students in the policy who report threats of violence? And I'm thinking about the paragraph where you discuss disciplinary action against an employee.
We did not discuss it, I think primarily because this sample policy just dealt with really the employee side of things. And this was, in the sample from the School Board Association and their attorneys was basically mirrors this language. But if you'd like, we could send it back and just talk through that and see.
If there would be value to expanding it to that direction. Yeah.
I think that would be fine. Did the staff have any issues with us moving this until like the second meeting in September to approve? Is that any concern? No? Okay. So, Commissioner Buckwell.
Is the reporting threats of violence covered in any other policy that would be under students? Because it's not cross-referenced, so that's your point's well taken.
Yeah, I think we could definitely bring it to policy and governance again and just bring it back.
My
It's
main
a good
point would be that I would want a student to know that no disciplinary action will be taken against them.
right.
That would be a main point.
Adding them to that clause. Okay. Okay. All right, so we will, we can place this on the next agenda potentially to pass if we maybe just have one clause and we can just read that clause. Otherwise, we can do it the second meeting in September. So, all right, are there any other comments or questions about this from the board? Any from the audience? Okay. Then that brings us to our next agenda item, which is requests for future agenda items. Do any board members have a request for a future agenda item? I just want to say thank you to Maida from the Human Resources Office for sitting in as our secretary tonight. You did a great job, and so we really appreciate it. And we'll schedule agenda setting once Patty is back in the office, so we'll work on that then. So seeing no other requests, I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:26.
So moved, since
Okay.
I had the longest
All right.
board meeting.
Everyone wants to move this one. All right, all in favor, say aye. Okay, we're adjourned. Thanks.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and the Eau Claire Area School Board. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org.